Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Wall Street Journal's Kim Strassel, who's a regular panelist on Bret Baier's special report. Good piece in the Journal. Good column, as usual, from her, explaining the Senate wall that the Biden agenda has hit, the combination of a ruling by the Senate parliamentarian, Elizabeth McDonough, that they cannot use the reconciliation tool as freely as Pagliacci Schumer would like, combined with Manchin and Sinema sticking to their guns and not agreeing to blow up the filibuster, as is the want of the more radical elements in the Democrat Socialist Party, leaves a big question. If they can't get things done piecemeal, the infrastructure, Green New Deal business, plus the Medicare expansion, plus, of course, the $6 trillion in spend, as outlined in Biden's budget last week, what are they to do? Can they do it in one fell reconciliation? Is that going to be possible? Could they get enough Democrats to support that? Moderate Democrats a little jumpy about all the spending. Yes, there are such things in Congress in small numbers, but important numbers. For more on where that all stands, pleased to be joined again by our friend Bret Baier. Of course, he is the host of the aforesaid special report, Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. Chicago time on Fox News Channel. Bret, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Morning. So what about Kim Strassel's analysis and where the sort of balance of power with respect to strategy over the Biden economic agenda, spending agenda, really, tax and spending agenda, where that stands?
Yeah, I think, as usual, Kim is right on. She's got her finger on the pulse of where Capitol Hill is. I mean, talking to people behind the scenes, there is a bit of a buzzsaw that they're running into, not just Manchin and Sinema, but other Democrats. Privately, there's probably 5 or 6 who have a problem with some of the massive spending proposals that they've kind of thrown out there in this blueprint of this budget. And I think that you will have people like Mark Kelly in Arizona, who's up for re-election coming up. You will have other people who may have voted with Biden a lot. Even Manchin and Sinema have voted with the Biden administration 100% of the time so far, but they are already indicating they will stand and make a stand if push comes to shove over getting rid of the filibuster. So I think that's why you're starting to see the president back down on this negotiation with Shelley Capito from West Virginia. Indications are that they've kind of scaled back what they're looking for in this first infrastructure bill, and the taxes are cut way back on corporate taxes. So we'll see.
And with respect to that, too, it seemed that Biden expressed some frustration when he, without naming them, essentially named them Manchin and Sinema and the filibuster. So to name them publicly like that as sort of impediments to the grand vision was sort of an interesting tell this week.
Yeah, but you know what? He was wrong. I mean, he said,
right.
And 2 of them who vote more times with my Republican colleagues. Well, I mean, you go back to the fact check, 100% of the votes so far, Sinema and Manchin have voted with the Biden administration. So I don't know. Maybe don't put that in the teleprompter.
Don't tell him that.
Well,
yeah.
he likes to throw those things out too. He also is fond of talking generically about all the Republicans who support all of his tax and spending plans and other plans as well, without really providing any definition to exactly who those Republicans are.
Yeah, well, the White House likes to say it's bipartisan because some poll somewhere says Republicans in the middle of the country agree that they like getting, a stimulus check or something. And that is their definition of bipartisan from seeing a poll that polls people, Democrats and Republicans.
Could Biden, you talked about the meeting with the West Virginia senator and scaling down their infrastructure, Green New Deal vision. Could they pull a bit of jujitsu? I mean, it may be that Senate Republicans are proposing something that's more modest, just to propose something to look constructive. But there's going to be a lot of pressure on Republicans to not vote for anything because so many conservatives are exhausted by all the spending by both parties over the last 15 months. and doing something smaller may put a lot of Republican senators in a trick bag who will feel pressure from their constituents.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is some of that, but we're always one election away from solving the big thing. So infrastructure is usually something that Democrats and Republicans can get around, despite concern about how it's going to be paid for. And they're tiptoeing through the tulips here. I mean, if they go too far towards the Republicans, they start losing progressive votes who think you should be going big and bold and push it through with the numbers that they have. So I think it's going to be a coalition here, and there'll be some moderate Democrats, there'll be Republicans, but they'll lose some progressives and some conservatives. All they have to do is get to 60.
Bret Baier, good to hear from you again. It's been a while. I wanted to ask you about Dr. Fauci's email. I know there's 3,000 pages, a lot to get through, but what did you find most egregious?
Well, first of all, I saw this thing from Tom Fenton in Judicial Watch where they have forwarded emails, and we're told by government officials that the reason it was taking so long is because Dr. Fauci was going through each email and reviewing it. In his requesting time, this is Judicial Watch, he said, I haven't heard of a government official going through and being involved in a FOIA release like that. I thought, there were some things redacted that I would have liked to have seen. His reaction to the conspiracy thing, linking to our first story in April that said that U.S. officials increasingly suspected that it was a lab leak, maybe an accident from the Wuhan lab. I listened to these interviews, and there is this straw man that they said conspiracy was a bioengineered virus, and really that's not what we were talking about at all at the time. In fact, specifically, those sources that were talking to us were saying that they didn't think it was bioengineered, but that it may have been adjusted or somehow been investigated inside that lab and escaped.
Yeah, and it's interesting that that Fitton reference to Fauci wanting to examine all the emails before being released, because in his interview with John Berman on CNN yesterday, he had no recollection of that email about conspiracy theories with those redactions that you were describing from between him and Francis Collins, the NIH director. There's so many emails, Brett, who can remember what was said in one specific one.
I just think there's more to the story. And, for what's so egregious is that it was this groupthink at the beginning. And for some reason, and I don't know, I can speculate, but for some reason, government officials at the highest level wanted to squelch that. And that's not what science is about, if you're going to talk about going after the science.
Well, and Fox News had the story yesterday about the State Department officials that were trying to put the kibosh on any inquiry into origins in January.
Yeah, and so why is that happening? What's the motivation? You can get down a road, you can explain it in your head, but I would like to know definitively, who was behind that? Why did it happen? And is it tied to, what we invested in that lab, even though they said they didn't realize that it was gain of function research.
Well, how soon before? Yeah.
The aforesaid Francis Collins, NIH director, was on with our colleague Hugh Hewitt yesterday, and it was interesting to see the subtle but perceptible move in position on this. He told Hugh the amount of money that we were providing the Wuhan Institute of Virology was a tiny fraction of their total funding, and we had no control over what they were doing with those funds. That's another thing we'd like to know more about. An investigation might potentially tell us. So all of a sudden now Francis Collins, like Tony Fauci, is interested in an investigation to find answers to these questions when they were not so inquisitive for most of the last year.
No, in fact, they said it's impossible. And that was another conspiracy theory they listed. The U.S. funded this lab and whatever research it was doing. And in fact, that's the case, in part through another entity. And that entity, the guy tied to that, is in this email chain with Fauci. So the whole thing needs more investigation, and we're going to continue on it.
Well, how soon before, there's a House committee or congressional committee to provide more answers with Dr. Fauci where he has to testify under oath on this?
Or how about a Dr. Fauci interview by Bret Baier?
Oh, that would be good too.
Well, we're working on it. It was easy to get early on. It's not as easy today. I think there's a hearing coming soon. There's a real clamoring up on Capitol Hill to continue this.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but his pre-order sales for his new book have been yanked on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Interesting. I didn't hear that.
Maybe you could do a book exchange to get him on the show. You could give him his FDR book, and he can get you one of those Dr. Fauci coloring books.
There you go. It's all incentive-based.
Yeah, right. All right, so on a lighter note, I've got a golf matter to take up with you.
Oh, yeah.
So I had the pleasure of playing in an outing a few weeks back with your father-in-law, who was just a ton of fun. What a great guy he was. That was so much fun to play with him.
Paul Hills.
Yeah, Paul Hills is a great guy. It was great to talk to him, too. Good to get to spend that much time with him. And he conferred on me a Bret Baier golf ball with the Baier family crest on it. And so I just want to know, what I have in my possession. How many Bitcoin is that Bret Baier golf ball worth?
That is a rare commodity. So my son, Paul, did this thing where you do an internet, I don't know, you pay a couple $100 and they have a contest, like a logo contest. And so people compete and come up with this logo. And so he put it out there and came up with this logo that we said looked pretty cool. It's a bee with a bear on it. And so that became the logo. We got the golf balls. It is a very rare commodity. So yeah. I don't know the Bitcoin price, but it's a rare commodity.
I have it in a bulletproof case.
Don't hit it in the water.
No, I have it in a bulletproof case right now.
It's in a shadow box, really.
I'm just trying to get market value. Also, I'm on radio. I'm not on Fox TV. So could your son pay a couple $100 to get a Proft logo ball going? See what that comes up with? Could he work on that?
Let's do it.
Could be a summer project.
Bret Baier, Fox News anchor.
He tapped his father for the couple $100.
Sure, absolutely. Bret Baier, Fox News anchor, special report, 5 p.m. Chicago time, best-selling author of 3 Days at the Brink, FDR's Daring Gamble to Win WW2. Bret, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
See you.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
This is attorney Stephen Leahy. This isn't the first crisis we faced together. Back in '08, business professionals in trouble sought help from bankruptcy attorneys, loan modification attorneys, foreclosure defense attorneys, and IRS attorneys trying to gain full financial recovery. They should have just called me. Let me tell you about Chuck. His small business